And I'll just kind of give one particular lens, particularly because I haven't transitioned to too many roles, right? And so there is one in particular that I think is important. So when I was leaving Big Law, I knew that I wanted to become product counsel and go in-house. And my resume was picking up traction, but every single time I interviewed, they would say, sorry, Charlie, you are just too young, right? Like you haven't, too inexperienced. That's the better word. You're too inexperienced. Again, you're only a second year looking for product counsel roles. And so in order to transition from Big Law to product counsel, I took a step back. I took 100K pay cut. And I also took a step down where I was associate product counsel. And that's, really important. That is a privilege to be able to take 100K pay cut. My partner is also a lawyer. So let's be honest here, right? Like there were some economics working for me in the background. But I think, you have to think strategically. This game is not 2D anymore. We're in a 3D game. You have to really think strategically and say, wow, if I take a step back, will it propel me 2 to 3 steps forward? What do I need to learn in this role so that I can get to the role that I actually want to be in? And so when I actually went to super.com as associate product counsel, I set up a timeline for myself. I said, Danielle, within 6 months, you're going to be promoted to product counsel. After that, you're going to spend 2 months cementing yourself in that role, and then you're going to start looking. Right. And then I thought about what were the skills I needed to develop within those 6 months to ensure that I was going to be promoted in 6 months. And I also told my GC that that was the plan. Very bold, very direct, but sometimes that's what you have to do in order to kind of move things forward. And that's the plan that I executed down to a T. And the day that I was at super.com for a year, I put in my notice and I was headed to Stripe as product and risk counsel. So sometimes you just have to think dynamically, take a pay cut, take a step back in order to propel yourself forward. And I'm sure Jennifer and Sumeet have some other advice or maybe comments on that as well.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to add to it. And I think that this same mindset applies to people that were in litigation, right? When I was a litigator for some time and I thought about going in-house, it was always my thought that it was the transactional folks that would play a better role within the in-house world. It was actually one of my first bosses at Citizens Bank that said it's actually litigators because we can understand when there's really a fire and when we could say yes and actually make quick decisions. I think that if you're in whatever role it may be, a litigator or transactional, there's always going to be stretch steps that you can take, whether it's within a meeting or within your own role, that let people understand that you're able to connect the dots more than just the silo that you're currently in. As a litigator, you can probably say, I've had this slew of litigation come out. Let's actually mess with the disclosures up front. Or let's talk about the vendor agreements and how we can put some of this risk on the vendors. Or is there a level of insurance that we can increase so this is not coming out of pocket? You're starting to connect the dots despite not being in the role that would otherwise connect the dots. And people are starting to understand this person is thinking much larger than the role that they're in. And they can also start to make decisions with people on other teams, whether it's risk, compliance to business, even sales, that's going to get the whole overall company moving in a better direction.
I'm
That
going to
also,
answer this question from a slightly different angle, if I may. We recently, at a number of different companies I've been at, we go through an exercise where we build ladders for different folks within the company. And as you become more senior at a company or you're trying to get a more senior role at another company, you have to think about how they consider and really think about leadership. And so the question, when I read it, I thought about, okay, I'm a person at a company and I'm doing more reactive work that would be deemed as transactional instead of strategic work. Forward, perhaps you could say forward thinking, outside of your swim lane, looking across the business, helping others solve their problems. And the way I like to talk about it with my team is, yes, it's really important to do the work, but as you become more well-rounded in a company and you become more strategically minded, you also consider how you work the work. You want to scale, you want to make your teams more efficient, more effective. You want to have the visibility into the product team, the people team, the revenue teams, and help them spot areas where they're getting bogged down that you can help them. And that is where that strategic mindset really elevates a person's visibility within a company. And then people in that company say, you know what, that's the person that's going to help me solve the problem, not just negotiate this one contract, but help me solve this problem. And then that, from my perspective, is how you get promoted. You show that you are continually going up the ladder and you're continually thinking bigger and bigger and bigger, because by the time you get to a senior director level or a VP level, or you'd like to be a general counsel, you must consider everything that's happening at a company, not just what's happening, say, in legal or in your group within legal. And so I view that as, okay, I want to step out of being reactive and being more strategic. Tactically, I would say, talk with your manager, raise strategic issues, make sure you're going to the staff meetings of your client teams, you're presenting, you're talking about strategic ways to help them be more effective. And that will just so elevate your profile. And then that leads back to what Sumeet said. The folks within your current company will get to know you and your work so well that when they go on to the next company, they're going to say, you know what, I had this lawyer that I worked with and they were commercial counsel or they were product counsel. It doesn't matter what sort of counsel they were, but they helped me solve my problems. And therefore that person is deemed ready for the next step.